While Russia tries to blame the United States for operations against Iran in order to justify its own future failures in negotiations on Ukraine, analysts are recording the collapse of the Kremlin strategy. But while official Moscow hurls threats, Putin himself suddenly disappears from the public eye, and the Kremlin releases old footage to distract the public. As stated in the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Moscow seeks to use the conflict in the Middle East to place the blame on the United States for possible failures in peace negotiations regarding Ukraine. In particular, on March 5th, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that the United States and Israel are trying to draw the Gulf countries into the conflict in the same way that the West allegedly drew Ukraine into the conflict with Russia. According to him, many Russian politicians are concerned that the United States is conducting operations against countries with which it is negotiating, as well as with how this affects the peace talks regarding Ukraine. Analysts add that meanwhile, other Russian officials are using the American operation against Iran and are trying to discredit the negotiations that the United States is conducting regarding Ukraine. Russia is not interested in agreements that do not meet its initial demands. At the same time, it has to act cautiously to avoid US sanctions or other pressures that would force it into serious negotiations, the publication states. In addition, the report states that the Kremlin also has to balance its bilateral relations with the US and its allies and partners, including those who are US adversaries such as Iran. As the New York Times writes, the Russian leader was among the first to benefit from the US-Israeli attack on Iran. However, at the same time, the US president's policy restrains Russia's global influence and undermines its strategies regarding foreign partnerships. In the past 2 months, there has been the killing of Iran's supreme leader by US-Israeli forces, the capture of Venezuela's president, and an economic blockade by the US aimed at overthrowing Cuba's president. In all these cases, Russia provided its allies with very little assistance. Donald Trump, who seeks out and engages with foreign leaders in their private homes and offices without any oversight from Congress, has also managed to turn the tables against Vladimir Putin. The publication notes that Putin had previously made his own risk-taking, his willingness to use force, and his unpredictability the central elements of his coercive power throughout the world. Now, he's no longer the worst guy, he's no longer able to inspire fear. This motif has transitioned over to Trump, and that's why Putin appears to be, in a sense, weak and pathetic, said Bo Bolon, a Russia analyst. This shows the limits of understanding what it means to be a partner of Russia, said expert Angela Stent. She noted that the case with Iran is especially telling, given Tehran's key role in providing support to Moscow in Ukraine. At the same time, the reality is that Russia, already deeply entangled in the war with Ukraine, could do very little to protect Iran, except to officially declare war on the United States or Israel, said Alexander Gabuev, director of a research center. At the same time, Trump made it clear that he does not necessarily intend to remove from office the Russian authorities in the countries where he has intervened. This leaves open the possibility for Putin to maintain ties with them. Trump asserted American power in countries that Putin considers his own territory, particularly by hosting Central Asian leaders and brokering a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. But in other cases, Trump's actions brought the Kremlin benefits that exceeded all its expectations. However, amid the attack on Iran, as reported in the System Project investigation, Vladimir Putin mysteriously disappeared from the public eye. This is indicated by an unexpected detail in the Kremlin office's interior, a houseplant visible in official footage. The Kremlin reported that on March 2nd to 3rd, Putin held meetings with officials. State television channels also reported that these events supposedly took place today. However, journalists determined that the videos could have been recorded much earlier, and the main evidence was the aglaonema plant located behind the ruler's desk. In the fall and at the beginning of February, the plant became bushier and some of its leaves turned yellow. At the same time, in the footage that the Kremlin presented as new after February 9th, the plant appears as if its condition has reverted to its previous state. The leaves are green again. Interestingly, after Sistema published a previous investigative report stating that Putin had not appeared on camera for 11 days, the Kremlin went ahead and changed the decorative plants in the office. The publication of videos of internal meetings may have been an attempt to show the Russian audience that the head of the Kremlin is focused on domestic issues and that the situation around Iran is supposedly not so critical for Moscow. And what do you think about this? Write your thoughts in the comments and we'll read them. That's all for now. Leave a like and see you next time.